Welcome to Synology Online. Thank you for coming. And as part of our video series, we're going to be stepping into some really important, critical things that you need to be aware of. And one of those I see a lot that comes here are NASA's with power supplies that have been replaced. There's a problem with this. That problem is actually about 99.9%. That's a high, almost 100% actually. By the way, the 0.1% is used original supplies. But let's take a look at what I'm trying to talk about so you can get an idea what you need to know when you buy a power supply for an AS. So here's the problem. 99.9% are fake garbage. If you bought a power supply on eBay, Newegg, or Amazon, in say the last 3 years, garbage. If you had your power supply replaced by someone, it's garbage. These are NAS destroyers. They actually destroy NASA's, and I'm going to tell you why. And we're going to go over some ideas because power supplies aren't cheap. Synology sells them still. You might not find one for your particular model, but if you look at other models, like let's say you're looking for a 1515 plus and you don't see it for sale on Synology. Well, look at an 1817 plus. It's the same one. So that's kind of confusing. Synology refuses to sell power supplies for outdated ones when they still sell it in newer ones. So why are these fake? Why are these bad? We're going to go over that. I have my Reddit page up here, and I also have an eBay page up here, so we're going to go over these. So just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So in my browser here, I actually have the eBay page. Maybe I'll try to block some of these sellers' names out. So the issue that's going on with these is that, let me make myself a little bigger here. The issue going on with these is they're non-compliant. That's where the problem is. So non-compliant means that the company that makes them hasn't gone for compliance, regulatory approvals. And these are illegal, actually, to sell in the United States for safety. I was a compliance engineer for 4 years, so believe me, I know what I'm talking about, and I can see it and tell it. So what's the danger in compliance marks like Underwriter Labs or the European Union mark? These are that UR, CE, Germany has like that big A. You'll see them on many electronic parts. It's required by law in this country. So the reason you want this is because compliance saves you from getting hurt. For example, if you have one of these supplies that I'm about to show you, because I know they're not compliance approved, 99.9% of them, you can get seriously hurt, end up in a hospital. If a lightning happens to hit that line while you're touching your NAS, you may not come back from the hospital too, if it's your left hand. So, in fact, in engineering, your left hand, which kind of might show as a right to you, we don't work with in high voltage because if you're an engineer, you know the reason why. It's the closest to the heart, and you just always use your right hand when you work on high voltage electronics. So let's go over these, and I'll actually give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So I hope you can see my mouse here, but here, for example, this guy's smart. He actually whited out the marks on there. These. Look at those marks. He actually covered them. These are the compliance marks. So that's actually something that there's no safety regulation on this. These are actually illegal. I'm surprised that even eBay allows these to be sold. And here's another thing. I mean, uh, let's go over one of these pictures, like here. I mean, voltage selector switch. Come on. Synology doesn't put any of this stuff in their NASs. So, but anyways, let's head back over to here. I did a search on power supplies for Synology 1815 pluses, as you see, just a general search. This applies to all NASs that have internal supplies. Uh, by the way, external as well. There's about an 80% chance you're getting a garbage one. So, and these, you know, look at this. I mean, this guy sold 71 of these. Sad, sad. That's 71 dead NASs if anything goes wrong, because there's no protection from surge, lightning, or you getting hurt. So sad, 71 NASA's dying for good, and even sometimes we can't fix them. And we'll go over that too in the 916 plus. But here is just a search. It came up with 137 results in the search. So let's see who's the real guy and who's the fake guy. Remember that 99.9%? Here we go. Fake. Fake. Says delta, but it's fake. It's not a real delta. Not a real delta. Fake. 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 Here's a guy who didn't cover his, which the other guy did. The same supply, because he just don't want to have the liability of you getting hurt. This guy doesn't know anything about the law, most likely from Asia. Most of these sellers send these here. By the way, this is actually a problem on eBay, Amazon, Newegg. These third-party sellers are flooding the market with copied garbage stuff. If you had your supply replaced by someone else, take it back, get a refund or your money back, because they're all garbage. You want a good commercial, medical, military grade supply like the Delta that came in yours, you're going to pay some bucks for it, because that thing lasts about 10 years. So that's why they sell for a lot more. Some people here are actually selling them real high, even though this is like a $5 supply in Asia. So let's go through this list a little more. Maybe I should make it a slight bit bigger. Fake, fake, garbage. Oh, I can't believe I found a real one. This is real, and it's pre-owned, so it came out of a unit. And that's actually good. So let's see what he has here. Yeah, this definitely looks real. Notice the honeycomb mesh speak fan. Oddly, it should have a Delta fan, because Delta makes the fans for these. You see the letter A here, where my mouse is. That's that German symbol. Look at all the compliance marks on here. It's upside down, but you can see CE, CCC, UR, a lot of these approvals for safety that you survive if lightning hits and your NAS survives. This is an original. And you can tell, look, even the connector, no split ATX connector where they have the two that separate. So yeah, here's a better shot. You got UR. I worked for underwriters as a contractor, so I know. Made in China, sure, that's obvious. But the thing is, there's a very strict guideline with making these. Like your Apple iPhone is made in China, but there's very strict guidelines for making these. It's got the Rose mark, the CE mark, EAC, and this. It's like, I believe it's a German mark. I never looked into this one. When I was in regulatory, my job was actually to work on circuit boards for a company in telecom and isolate primary circuits from secondary, and then punch it with 5,000 volts and see if something bridges over to the secondary side. That's the low voltage human side of things. The high voltage is in the source. The secondary is the end user portion of the power supply. And we want to make sure that never crosses over. So if it does, that's a problem. So look at the model number, DPS 250AB. You're going to see this on fake ones. This is actually a Delta part number. Nobody else owns this but Delta. And you'll find companies stealing this. So let's go back. I can't believe I found one that's real. Usually it's 100% none. Fake, 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 garbage, fake, trash, trash. Ooh, this guy really decorated. He's got some mesh thing going on here. Garbage. You don't want it. So just say goodbye. It won't. These are fake ones. Fake. You can see even no honeycomb. It's got this weird hexagonal 4-dot thing. Fake. Synology doesn't put voltage selector switches on theirs. Fake. All fake. Let me see if I spot a real one. They don't use black connectors too. Fake. Fake. This one's got white connectors, but it's fake. By the way, if you notice the wiring on them, they're real thin and cheesy looking, like hair wire, compared to the original Deltas that we use a real thick wire on them. So fake. Synology puts no quality stickers on theirs, like past inspection, and don't need to. Name's too big to have to worry about stuff like that. They don't put even stuff like AC 220, AC 115. Nah, all garbage. Let's see. Fake, 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 garbage, trash. Here's a company that's got its own name, this Urker company, and they're using a Delta power supply part number. So you would buy it because you saw DPS 250AB. That's a Delta power supply product model number, not Urker's. They're stealing it. A lot of them even actually, let's actually see a Delta. You're going to see, okay, here's a fake one. It's a copy. And let's check this out. You notice the compliance marks have all been removed. But check that out. It says Delta on it, but it's not a Delta. This is a fake. All right. There's no Delta fan, voltage. There's a quality sticker down here. This is the problem. So many fakes and garbage ones are being sold on eBay, Newegg, Amazon. No good. You're going to destroy your NAS. I mean, these things have a tendency to have parts come loose in them when they're shipped. These have a tendency to let surge in, destroy your drives, destroy your motherboard. I can't even fix it. When it gets surge, it pops through it and destroys all these chips on your board. So let's see. I'm going through here. Fake, 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 garbage, garbage. Now you see why I said 99.9% garbage. Pages and pages of garbagey supplies. Oh, garbage. I can spot a real one a mile away. This guy got a lot of stuff. Even, this is interesting. Here's a guy who actually copied Delta's logo, the company that made this. Took their logo, put it on their fake cheap supply, and this is really illegal because this is not a Delta supply. And we can tell, actually. Here, they don't use black connectors. They don't have this funky mesh screen thing on it. There's no coil in the grill like you're supposed to have. Sad. People actually buy these things. This thing has all the compliance marks on it, but I can guarantee it has not been compliance approved. And you can see this R330, 33030. That's actually the registration mark for Delta, and that's their number. And I already know this is not a Delta. This is a fake one. Surprised Delta hasn't even brought up something to these companies about this. So here's another one. It's got all the marks. It's a fake. Look at the price, $70. How can you go from this to that, half price, and it's the same supply? So you know it's fake. Here's one with the white connectors. It looks real, but we already know it's fake because there really is no compliance marks. The other thing is this. Delta never does this. Split ATX connectors. You won't find that on any Delta. This is a universal supply. So if you see a split connector, ATX connector on yours, that's fake. So let's drop him out of there. And, oh man, what kind of stuff is that? They put these fans in here from a company I never heard of. They last like a year and they start buzzing like crazy. It's 320 watts. Wow, I doubt it. So, fake, garbage, fake, more fake. None you can tell right off the bat. Look for the honeycomb grill because that hasn't changed in the last 15 years for Delta. So fake, fake, more fakes, garbage. Somebody's selling an ass. Garbage, fake, 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 garbage. Don't put them in your NAS. One page left, and we can see fake, garbage. It's who's this guy? I was trying to sell service. Hey, that's me. What am I doing on this page? Anyways, here's a guy who sends a cheap fix. People buy 124 of these. Forget it. It's only a temp fix. You need about 7 parts for a permanent fix. And I already know he's only giving you 2 or 3 parts. Anyways, fake, 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 fake. Okay. Now, let's talk about supplies. What can you do? What are the alternatives? I have a Reddit page. This page probably has about 5,000 views on it since I posted it 3 years ago, but I wrote 95% are all fakes, but no, it's about 99.9. How can you tell if you have, a fake one? So let's see. Yeah, that's what it should look like on the grill. All right. Fake deltas. There's no fan inside that's delta. This one's trying to copy Delta's logo, but if you look at it up close, like I did, it's not the same logo. It's a concoction of one. Here's one I was talking to you about earlier. They borrow Delta's registration marks and put it on their own, and it's not even labeled as a Delta. They do take Delta's DPS part number and their info here. Has some compliance marks. No, this is not approved compliance. Believe me, I know. I was a compliance engineer. Here's a real Delta. And this is a key thing. You'll always see a big fat coil there. This hasn't changed in 15 years. So if you got a real Delta, you're going to spot that coil. Delta's heavy. When you buy an aftermarket one and put it next to a Delta, you can tell the difference. There's a lot of weight difference between those two. Believe me. Here's another thing Delta does. They always label P1, 2, and 3 on their power supplies. So, and they use white connectors, use thick wires. You hold a lot of power. This is a new style Delta. I started seeing these actually in some of the newer ones. Actually, even the 80 Plus logo is on some of the new ones. So they started putting these 2 screws on top. It's neat. It's kind of like what Seasonic does if you have a Seasonic. And speaking of that, you can use a Seasonic supply or a Delta supply in your NAS. Back in, I think it was 2012, 2013, there was a switch time for Synology. They went from Seasonic power supplies to Delta. I like them both. Seasonic has like this slow delayed start. It's like a 1 second delay, like you hit the power button and 1 second later the NAS turns on because they have this big charge cap in them. I did a posting here in Reading how to fix the problem with that. So But this is new. These are the new gens. It says 2023, and actually see this in some of the newer ones. Here's the newer 80 plus version of it. Surprising to see 80 plus being put on a Delta supply, but it's good. I mean, the more the better. And this is the real deal. So, um, let's see. Here's one showing missing compliance marks a customer had compared to a Delta. This guy's even smarter. He covered the whole label. Good idea. You don't get sued for that. See, by whiting out the compliance marks, you remove the liability for personal injury, but you don't remove the liability for product destruction. So at least people who remove that, they get out of the human liability factor because of the compliance problem. So anyways, these are the supplies. Here's something you won't see on Deltas. Split ATX. Delta never puts these on. Look at this one. The screws were even coming off. This is brand new. So, what else did I put here? 80 plus logo wrong. Sonic. Delta never puts this sticker on. It's true. They don't. They don't need this stuff. Everyone knows they're not really a public selling power supply. They have to sell mainly to vendors before they go out to the public. So they don't need this stuff. Common problems going. This fake Delta, I'm sorry. This was one that blew. Sonic, a beautiful power supply as well. I love them. Emacs too. I love them. Emacs like the Lexus of power supplies. Synology can't even afford this company. They do use Emac FSP for their external adapters, the black bricks for the NASAs that have external adapters for power supplies instead of the internals. But these guys are beauties, all chrome, shiny, not that dull gray. Anyways, let's get over with this and talk about alternatives. So, what do? Um, you don't want to buy a fake one. You don't want to buy something that you risk destroying your NAS or injuring you personally. So here's what I do if I run into a situation I don't have any Deltas, because I do get them as well. And I'm going to show you some fakes first here. For example, I brought some over. For example, here's one a customer brought in. This came out of an RS 1221 RP Plus, so not good. It voltage selector switch on it, flimsy paper thin wiring. Does it have? Has a split ATX connector. 350 watts. Wow. I doubt it. I don't have three. This is not 350. Probably be lucky it can do it. Look at even the screws are coming out on the fan up here. And what is that? So they charge a lot for these, but this is like a $10 supply because it's a fake. It's really light too. You know, you ever get those cheap Apple adapters and you're like, it feels like nothing's in it. You know, compared to original, it's heavy. So look at that. So, okay, what's your alternatives? I'm going to show you what I do. Before I do, these are the new Deltas, 80 plus. This one's brand new. And these are nice originals. Over $100, but I want it to last. This is it. So, alternatives. What are we going to do for an alternative, Ray? So, you can buy an eMac, okay? It has, some of them come with the 18-pin ATX and different connectors. What do I do? This is actually a 300 watt power supply. Nice chrome. This is heavy duty stuff. Military grade too. Cut the ends off. Cut the ends off and solder your old connectors onto this. You got a good supply. I mean, this thing, $20. It's used, but let me tell you, at running 300 watts or even 350 watts or 500 watt supplies like this thing's going to last you 7, 8 years compared to the original Delta 250 watt or 200 watt, depending on your model. It only lasts 10 years. So you can get a lot of time out of these things. Here's one I actually do. Look at this chrome beauty. Oh, I love these Athenas. Imagine putting that in your 1815 plus. Your 1815 comes with a 250 watt. This is 500. That's double. This thing could last 20 years in your NAS. Of course, none of that's going to fit in your NAS. Cut it off. Solder on your other wires. You don't need all this stuff. Now, when you do these, some of these have what's called voltage switch sensing. So you have to look at the connectors on them. Let me see if this one has one. Here it is, it does. So inside, and don't forget these when you make them, inside here is a 12 volt yellow and a brown wire connected together. I don't know if you can see that, but this camera might not zoom in too well. There's two wires in one slot. Check that when you build these, because a lot of companies put in sense wires, which means that brown wire that's in with the yellow, it needs to detect that 12 volt is present there in order to switch on another section. So a lot of these companies put in checks into their wiring. So always examine this up close if you're going to be cutting it off and soldering on one for your NAS. And this one didn't get cut, but here is another one, and you can see this part's good. I don't have to do anything with that thing, so it looks perfect. This one, though, this will actually be custom made for the other two connections for the SATA rail. So I got plenty here. Some I might not even use. It's thick wires, too. This stuff is thick compared to those aftermarket ones that are real cheap. 500 watts, baby. This thing ought to last you like 20 years practically. So, anyways, I wanted to get over this because it's so important that people get rid of these things. They're destroying NASAs. There's nothing I can do about them, People come to me, oh, you can fix it. I can't fix everything that gets destroyed by surge or lightning, or you saving $50 on buying a cheap power supply. You need to get OEM. Go to Synology, buy it. Or go out there, get one of these. These come from Canada. There's a good seller from Canada that sells these. Get this, rewire it, solder it, put it in your NAS. You will not regret it. Sometimes I get them where the fan's a little noisy. Just take the fan out of your Delta and put it in. It's the same one. So there you have it. Hope you got a little bit of insight on what to do for power supplies and why it's so critical for your safety as well as your NAS's safety. Keep your data intact. Can you imagine lightning hitting your NAS or surge and there goes your data? If it's not you, bye-bye. So anyways, thank you for stopping by and look forward to the next video. We're probably going to be doing the DS916 Plus because you're going to see what happens when bad supplies or surge or lightning hits the NAS. All right. Thank you, and we'll be seeing you on the flip side.